I never imagined that in the middle of my nightly prayer, as I silently sought God's presence, my spirit would be transported to a place of such dense darkness that it seemed to swallow even the air. The clock read 3:15 a.m. when an invisible force ripped me from the floor, and in the blink of an eye, I was no longer in my room. I found myself in a tunnel made of living shadows, walls that breathed as if they were made of flesh, and a suffocating heat that made my skin burn. I felt that something terrible was about to be revealed, something that would not only scar me, but that I had to tell the world about, no matter the cost. If you are reading this, write in the comments what country you are listening from, because I want to pray for you and your family. Do not ignore this testimony, because what I saw was too real to be a dream, and it is a direct warning from heaven. The tunnel opened onto an immense esplanade, a blazing stage resembling a concert hall, but not of celestial music, rather of distorted sounds that chilled the soul. I saw a gigantic amphitheater of fire where thousands of demons clapped and shouted as if awaiting the entrance of a star. In that place, there was no rest. Every scream was a lament turned into a spectacle. And suddenly, the flames parted like curtains, and a female figure was thrust into the center. Her hair was singed, but still retained recognizable glimmers. And her face, though consumed by pain, left no doubt as to who she was. It was Shakira, the singer whom millions had exalted on earth, now reduced to a soul trapped in hell. Demons surrounded her. Some in the form of beasts, others disguised as grotesque dancers. They began to sing her songs not with joy, but with mockery. The melody of Hips Don't Lie resonated distorted, accompanied by diabolical laughter. Each verse was transformed into chains that wrapped around her body, and each rhythm was a fiery whip that forced her to move like a puppet. She screamed, "Stop! Don't sing anymore." But her voice was drowned out by a macabre chorus of thousands of demons who repeated her lyrics as if they were infernal hymns. The Spirit spoke to me at that moment with a firm voice. "Look closely at what you are seeing. Thus the enemy takes what on earth seemed like innocent entertainment and turns it into instruments of eternal torment. Every song that exalted desire and led the heart astray from the truth is used as a weapon against her own soul." I shuddered. It wasn't a concert, it was a public trial where her musical legacy has become her chains. I saw how every stage she had ever set foot on earth was now reproduced in fire. Multitudes of damned souls applauded and screamed like fans. But their screams weren't of admiration, they were of condemnation. The idolatry she had reaped transformed into her torment, and the very chants that once filled stadiums were now daggers piercing her. Satan appeared from the shadows with a mocking smile and said, "With your songs you drew multitudes. With your voice you sowed desire, and with your fame you multiplied my kingdom. Now your voice is mine, and your music will be my eternal mockery." The image broke me. Shakira tried to cover her ears, but she couldn't. Her hands became deformed instruments, like burning drums endlessly repeating their rhythms. Every movement was an infernal choreography imposed by demons, and every tear that fell was it transformed into fiery musical notes that joined the chorus of condemnation. I understood that what seemed like mere entertainment on earth was, in the spiritual realm, a disguised altar, an altar that demanded invisible sacrifices and was now collecting its due in the abyss. I fell to my knees in the midst of that vision and cried out to the Lord, "Have mercy on your people. Open the eyes of those who still follow those melodies without discerning them." And the Spirit answered me, "Speak what you see. Many do not understand that music can be a gateway to life or a gateway to death. Do not be silent, for millions are being dragged down by the same lyrics that now become chains." Hell began to transform into a blazing coliseum. The seats were full, not of living fans, but of human shadows, condemned souls who on earth had sung and danced to its lyrics without understanding the spiritual power behind them. Each of those souls desperately repeated fragments of songs as if they were mantras they couldn't stop. I saw young people in concert t-shirts, children with banners, women and the men weeping as they sang the choruses. It was a grotesque spectacle, an echo of earthly worship transformed into eternal torment. Shakira was in the center, forced to hold a microphone of fire that stuck to her skin and burned her lips every time she tried to sing. But the demons didn't want her music for its beauty, they wanted it to mock her. They repeated over and over, "Your lyrics were seeds, and now they bloom in our kingdom." I saw how every word that had ever left her mouth transformed into living figures, snakes made of musical notes, blackbirds that mimicked her voice, and chains that stretched from the ground to her throat. The Spirit spoke to me solemnly. This is how the enemy operates. Music is not neutral. What does not glorify the Creator inevitably glorifies the Destroyer. Every song that exalts ego, desire, vanity, or sin becomes an altar of idolatry. And when millions surrender to that altar, the chains multiply. Satan walked toward her, dragging a throne made of incandescent speakers. He sat in the middle of the stage and raised his hand as if conducting an orchestra. At that moment, the demons began to play a distorted version of her greatest hits. Whenever, whatever. It sounded distorted, but instead of melody, it was a lament. Each verse a reminder of the chains she had forged. Shakira screamed, "Leave me alone, I didn't want this." And Satan, laughing, replied, "Of course you wanted it. You wanted fame, applause, riches. I gave them to you, and now I'm giving you your payment." The most chilling thing was seeing how her audience, those trapped souls, rose as if they were part of a concert, but their faces were disfigured, and instead of smiles, there were cries of despair. They sang not for pleasure, but because they were condemned to repeat that which chained them in life. And the more they sang, the stronger the flames burned around her. I saw the demons hand her deformed instruments, guitars with strings made of burning intestines, drums pounded with human bones, and keyboards that produced heart-wrenching sounds. They forced her to lead that macabre band as if she were still the star of a stage. But instead of receiving glory, she received humiliation. Each note was a scream, each rhythm a torment, and each chorus a heavier chain on her soul. I shuddered remembering how millions on earth repeated those lyrics without question. The Spirit showed me images of parties, nightclubs, stadiums where crowds surrendered to the rhythm without thinking about the spiritual doors that were opening. They don't know it, but when their mouths repeat lyrics of idolatry, they become the enemy's chorus, said the Spirit in pain. Suddenly, a screen of fire rose in the air displaying interviews and statements from Shakira on earth, words in which she spoke of energy, of ancient gods, of invisible forces. Each of those phrases was now used as evidence against her. The demons screamed, "You said it, you confessed it, your voice belongs to us." And each statement became a snake that bit her, leaving burning marks on her skin. He rose from his throne and raised his voice as if speaking to that entire multitude of shadows. Entertainment is my most effective weapon. I don't need stone temples when I have stadiums. I don't need religious hymns when I have catchy songs. And I don't need blood sacrifices when I have entire generations who surrender their minds and hearts through a rhythm. His words fell like a hammer on the air, and I understood that this infernal concert was a cruel parody of what was celebrated on earth as culture and art. I fell face down and wept. Lord, what can we do against such a great deception? Millions sing without knowing they are chaining themselves. The Spirit answered me, "Speak, testify. Awaken those who have ears, because the enemy doesn't hide in the grotesque, he disguises himself in the attractive. The sweeter it sounds, the more deadly the poison. But my word is a sword, and it can still cut those chains." The burning Colosseum began to mutate as if it were alive. The stands stretched out into giant walls, and from them emerged the distorted faces of former fans, men and women who on earth had followed Shakira's every step. Some wept, others screamed, others repeated the choruses as if they were chains on their lips. It was as if her fame, far from disappearing, has become an eternal echo of damnation. I then saw the demons unfurl a kind of fiery scroll. On it were written the lyrics of her most famous songs, but not as we remembered them on earth, but transformed into curses. Each word shone like burning coals, and as they were read, they transformed into creatures that pounced on her. When they uttered verses that spoke of forbidden love, demons of lust arose. When they mentioned boundless independence, beasts of rebellion appeared. When they extolled the power of desire, figures of fire rose up and chained her. Shakira tried to cover her ears, but the scroll continued to unfold endlessly, revealing that her own voice had been the contract. Satan raised the parchment and shouted, "You yourself wrote your sentence." Each verse was a signature, each melody a pact, and the multitudes of demons applauded, mocking with laughter that sounded like thunder. I shuddered to understand that the letters so often repeated on earth were not mere words, but spiritual decrees that were now exacting their price. At that moment, I saw a river of lava erupting behind the stage, flowing like a sea of liquid fire, but it was no ordinary river. Floating in it were discs, awards, trophies, recognitions, all the accolades I had received on earth. Each one burned like live coal, and the river carried these symbols toward her. The gold discs stuck to her skin, the trophies transformed into daggers that pierced her, and the awards became shackles that tightened around her ankles. Satan approached and said in a mocking voice, "Everything you sought, here it is. Your prison. All that you celebrated, here is your torment. This is the price of glory without a cross." The Spirit spoke to me with a broken voice. Many do not understand that what is pursued on earth becomes inheritance in eternity. If you pursue holiness, you receive life. If you pursue vanity, you receive condemnation. It's not by chance, it's spiritual law. Tell them not to play with what they hear, because songs are seeds, and every seed bears fruit for life or for death. Suddenly, I saw the demons begin to erect altars inside the Colosseum. They weren't stone altars, but altars of giant screens that played distorted music videos. Images of sensual dances, of provocative choreography, were repeated over and over, but each movement was accompanied by shouts of condemnation. Shakira was forced to imitate those dances while her feet burned on hot coals. She tried to stop, but the demons pushed her, shouting, "This is how you seduced, this is how you condemn yourself." The souls in the stands clapped with a macabre rhythm, not because they wanted to, but because they were enslaved to the echo of that music. I saw thousands of young people who had been swept away by those lyrics, repeating the choruses as if they were chains they couldn't break. Every word they uttered made their bodies burn more in the fire. It was a collective cult, an endless concert that no longer sought to entertain, but to humiliate and destroy. Satan raised his voice as the conductor of that infernal orchestra and declared, "The world thought it was just entertainment, but in reality, it was worship in disguise. I didn't need temples built for me because I already had stadiums. I didn't need hymns written for me because I already had songs, and I didn't need prayers offered because dances were already being offered." The echo of his voice resonated throughout the burning valley, and I understood that this strategy had ensnared millions, not only through Shakira, but through an entire industry designed to lead hearts astray. The Spirit told me urgently, "Don't be silent. Speak about this." Many believe that singing innocent lyrics has no consequences, but every repeated word is a pact, every melody is an altar. She warned, because there is still time to break chains, there is still enough blood to cleanse hearts, but they need to listen, they need to awaken. The infernal scene began to change again, as if the abyss itself wanted to display every detail of the fall. This time a structure rose up that resembled a football stadium, but distorted, with the stands covered in fire and the seats occupied by demons beating drums made of human skulls. In the center, Shakira was dragged toward a platform made of burning bones. There they forced her to sing, though her voice came out broken, mixed with cries of pain. Every time she tried to sing a word, the air filled with burning sparks that turned into blades. Those blades returned to her, wounding her face, her chest, her hands. The demons applauded and said, "This is how you reap what you sowed. Your songs cut down generations. Now those same words cut your soul." I watched in horror as even the musical notes took the form of chains with hooks that dug into her skin. Suddenly, a group of demons appeared wearing masks that mimicked the faces of her most famous fans, artists, actors, and politicians who had once publicly celebrated her. Each held signs with lyrics from her songs, but written in fire. They walked around her as if they were worshippers, but instead of lifting her up, they pushed her further into the abyss. It was a macabre parody of the cult that she received in life. The spirit spoke to me clearly. This is how idolatry works. What seems like love on earth transforms into condemnation in eternity. The same ones who exalted her with their lips now drag her down with their screams. Because the heart that does not surrender to God inevitably surrenders to the enemy's deception. The infernal stadium roared as Satan raised a black banner with fiery letters that read Queen of Show Business. As he uttered those words, a crown of fire appeared above Shakira's head. But it wasn't a crown of honor, it was a diadem of incandescent thorns that pierced her skull, spilling blood that evaporated upon touching the ground. She screamed, "Take it off. I don't want this crown." And Satan, laughing, answered her, "On earth you sought titles. You wanted to be queen, you wanted to be eternal. Here is your reign, a throne of shame, a crown of torment." I saw the stage transform into a spinning wheel. The demons bound her to that wheel and began to spin her while they sang choruses of her songs. Each spin hurled her against spears of fire that pierced her body, but they did not destroy her, they only prolonged her pain. It was an endless spectacle, a parody of the concerts where she once performed whirls and choreographed routines, now transformed into torture. My spirit shook me with a deeper revelation. Every applause she received without giving me glory, here becomes fire. Every dance she inspired without holiness, here becomes a chain. Every young woman who imitated her example without discernment, here becomes a testimony against her. Because fame without a cross does not elevate, it sinks. The most terrifying thing was when I saw children in the stands of hell. They were little souls, trapped, repeating songs as if they were games. They sang through tears as if they couldn't stop. Shakira looked at them and cried out, "Forgive me, I didn't know." But the demons responded cruelly. "Yes, you did know. You knew the power of your voice. You knew what you provoked. You knew whom you served." That scene tore at my heart because I understood that influence doesn't end on a stage, it's sown in entire generations. Then, Satan raised his hands, and the whole stadium shook like an earthquake. Flames rose to form a gigantic screen where scenes from her life were projected, interviews, awards, scandals, iconic phrases. Each scene was met with demonic laughter as if they were inverted medals. And Satan declared, "The world crowned her, I claim her. The world idolized her, I display her. And so it will be with all who prefer fame to the cross." I fell to my knees trembling and cried out, "Lord, have mercy on your people. Open the eyes of those who still listen to these songs without discernment." The Spirit answered me, "Speak, do not fear. Even if they persecute you, even if they call you crazy, do not be silent, because millions are still singing chains disguised as music. If just one awakens, if one family is freed, it will have been worth it." The infernal stadium began to transform into a dark theater, a stage reminiscent of the great spectacles of earth, but distorted by shadows and fire. A gigantic screen of liquid lava ignited behind Shakira, displaying images from her most famous music videos, but they were not the ones we knew. In each one, the dancers were grotesque demons, and the choreography became movements of chains and whips. Every time she saw a scene from her past, the demons forced her to reenact it with her chained body, and each step ended in wounds that tore at her. I saw the music video for La Loba projected in flames, but the she-wolf was not a sensual metaphor, but a demon with enormous claws that lunged at her. The monster grabbed her with its paws and dragged her across the stage while thousands of demons howled in chorus. The Spirit spoke to me at that moment. The enemy transforms seemingly harmless symbols into portals of damnation. She played with animal imagery, But on the spiritual plane, she opened doors to real beasts that now devour her. Then came the Waka Waka scene. The chant that was once a global anthem was now being repeated in hell, but with distorted voices, soul-chilling screams. The words, instead of uniting, brought nothing. Instead of bringing joy, they dragged thousands toward the abyss. Shakira wept as she listened to the demons marching to the rhythm of that song, beating drums made of human bones as if celebrating an eternal victory over generations. Satan rose up and declared, "Your songs were flags in stadiums. Now they are flags in my kingdom." With them you mobilized multitudes, and I claim every soul that danced without discernment. The multitude of condemned shadows rose like a macabre choir. Each one repeated lines of the lyrics while raising torches of fire. But those torches did not illuminate, they burned. Every soul that sang the songs burned even brighter, as if each word spoken were gasoline poured over their own bodies. The Spirit revealed to me, this is the fruit of musical idolatry. Not only does the one who sings fall, but also the one who surrenders to the melody without discernment. Millions are trapped in these invisible chains, and few understand that this is a spiritual war disguised as entertainment. I saw the Grammy Awards, trophies, and accolades I had received on earth begin to float in the air like specters. Each trophy warped into a claw that gripped it, tightening its arms and legs digging into her flesh. Satan walked around and said, "The world gave you these trophies as symbols of greatness. I use them as eternal shackles, because what glitters on earth turns to iron in hell." She tried to shake them off, but the more she struggled, the stronger the trophies that imprisoned her became. At one point, the demons began to chant a mocking song, "Queen of Latin Pop, Global Icon." Each title was a new chain that wound round her neck. She screamed, "No, I don't want titles, I want freedom." But Satan replied in a mocking voice, "Freedom was on the cross, and you rejected it. Now your titles are your condemnation, and your voice will be my eternal echo." Suddenly, the entire stage was illuminated with a dark glow. It was as if hell itself wanted to display her as a trophy. The demons raised banners of fire bearing lyrics from her songs and forced her to parade as if at a concert. But each step was torment, and each clap was a spiritual slap that plunged her deeper into the abyss. The Spirit spoke to my heart. So it will be with all who prefer the glory of the world to the glory of God. For the world applauds for a moment, but hell applauds forever. I fell to my knees, feeling the weight of the vision. I asked, "Lord, what message should I give to those who still listen to this music without thinking?" And he answered me in a solemn voice, "Tell them that not everything that sounds beautiful comes from me. Tell them that melodies can be disguised bait and that hearts must be guarded. Tell them that the enemy doesn't need open warfare when he has songs to sew chains in millions. Don't be silent, because this is a battle that many don't even know they're fighting." The fiery theater began to transform once more. This time the stage became a gigantic temple of distorted mirrors. Each mirror projected images of Shakira at different moments in her career, massive concerts, interviews, international tours, stadium shows. But what was chilling was that each reflection showed her face transforming into a demonic mask, grinning with sharp teeth while thousands of shadows applauded. She screamed, "No, that's not me." But he appeared beside her and said, "Yes, you are. Every clap you received without giving me glory opened a portal for me. Every time you accepted being an idol, you signed my contract. These mirrors don't lie. They show what you truly sowed." I saw the mirrors shatter one by one, and from each fragment emerged small demons with the appearance of fans. They carried banners with phrases like, "You are eternal, goddess of music, unparalleled." But those phrases transformed into chains that encircled her. Every word of flattery became burning iron, imprisoning her further. The Spirit spoke to me. The enemy doesn't need hatred, he needs worship. Because worship, even when directed at a human, ends up feeding his kingdom. Thus, millions were trapped without knowing it. Suddenly, an enormous demon, dressed as a master of ceremonies, appeared in the center, raised a black book with occult symbols, and opened it in front of everyone. On its pages were written the lyrics of songs that never they were published, hidden lyrics that Shakira had written privately. The demon screamed, "Nothing is lost in the spiritual realm. Everything that came out of your mouth, everything you wrote in secret, is part of the contract. Everything belongs to my kingdom." She wept inconsolably as she looked at those pages, because she understood that even her thoughts had become weapons against her. The entire Colosseum roared as Satan rose and began to conduct a hellish choir. The demons repeated verses from his most famous songs in distorted voices, but now each word was a cry of condemnation. The audience of damned souls rose like an army, marching to the rhythm of those corrupted melodies. It was a terrifying spectacle, a satanic liturgy constructed from what on earth had been entertainment. I saw Shakira being given a deformed guitar. The strings were snakes that coiled around her fingers, biting her every time she tried to play. Yet he demanded, "Play, play for me. Just as you played for multitudes, now you will play eternally for hell." She wept, saying, "I don't want to. Leave me alone." But the demons compelled her, and each note that emerged became an arrow piercing her own body. The Spirit spoke to me with cutting clarity. Many don't believe in this because the world has romanticized music. They don't understand that every melody opens doors. If the door doesn't lead to heaven, it inevitably leads to the abyss. What she is experiencing is the fruit of having put her talent at the service of herself and not the Creator. And this isn't just about her, it's about all those who choose that path. The most chilling thing was when I saw young people on earth, in different nations, listening to those same songs with headphones, unaware that they were spiritually connected to this same infernal concert. Every time they repeated the lyrics, a thread of fire linked them to the stage of hell. It was as if he were slowly dragging them in without them realizing it. Shakira saw them and screamed, "Don't follow in my footsteps. Don't repeat my songs." But her voice didn't reach them. It was drowned out by Satan's laughter. At that moment, Satan raised a giant mirror in front of her. In the reflection was not her current face, but a younger version from her early years of fame. That image smiled at her with pride and said, "I opened the door and you kept it open." She tried to destroy that reflection, but she couldn't. He declared, "Your youth was my seed, your success my harvest, and now your eternity is my trophy." I fell to the ground weeping, feeling a pain in my chest impossible to describe. I cried out, "Lord, what will happen to the millions who still listen to these songs?" The Spirit answered with a firm voice, "If they hear this testimony and repent, they will be free, but if they ignore it, they will walk toward the same stage. That is why you must speak out. Do not be silent, because millions are being bound by lyrics they believe to be harmless." Hell did not stop in humiliating her with songs and choreography. Now, before my eyes, the stage changed into a city of fire, with streets made of embers and buildings rising from black smoke. On the walls of those buildings were painted murals of Shakira, but distorted. Her eyes were hollows from which tongues of fire emerged, and her open mouth emitted endless screams. Thousands of demons danced around those murals, repeating the dance steps that millions imitated on earth. Each time they took a step, the flames spread like waves that trapped more souls. Shakira was dragged to a central plaza where an altar in the form of an awards stage stood. He had a giant trophy made of molten gold and skulls encrusted with the inscription "Eternal Idol of the World." The demons forced her to embrace this trophy, but every time she touched it, the burning metal melted onto her skin, burning her. She screamed, "I don't want this prize, take it away." But Satan appeared and declared, "It is yours. You sought it with every fiber of your being, and now it is your eternal inheritance. The earth gave you applause, I give you fire." The Spirit spoke to me with a deep lament. Such are modern altars. The world does not erect stone statues, it erects cultural icons, and millions worship them without realizing it, singing, imitating, repeating, but the end is the same. What does not glorify heaven, glorifies hell. Be warned, for this altar is not only hers, it belongs to all who place their trust in human idols." Suddenly, a group of demons dressed as grotesque dancers surrounded Shakira. They placed chains on her ankles and began to force her to dance to the beat of an infernal drum. Each step tore pieces of her skin, each movement ripped her apart, but she was forced to continue. The demons screamed, "So you seduced the world, now you dance for us." She wept and begged, "Lord, forgive me." But her voice was drowned out by the roar of hell. The height of horror came when a gigantic demon, with black wings and a face covered by a golden mask, appeared with an infernal guitar in his hands. He began to play a distorted riff, and the entire Colosseum shook. Thousands of demons and damned souls chanted, "Shakira, Shakira." It was as if she was still a star, but this time her fame was being used to mock her. He raised his hands and he said, "Your name is eternal, but not in glory, but in torment. Just as the earth celebrated it, I immortalize it in my caverns." The Spirit spoke to me with urgency. "Look and speak. Many are still alive and repeat those same lyrics. Tell them that every song that idolizes desire and ego is a burning altar in hell. Tell them that what seems like fun can be a gateway to slavery, because the enemy doesn't need visible chains when he has invisible melodies that bind the soul." I saw how, from Earth, teenagers danced on digital platforms, repeating choreographies that went viral. Each movement was like a thread of fire descending to that infernal plaza. Shakira saw them and shouted, "Pen, don't continue." But the demons laughed. "They are yours. You opened the door, they walked through it." That vision shook me to my core, because I understood that hell doesn't only exact its price from idols, but also from their followers. The stage lit up with a black glow, and in the sky of the abyss, fiery letters appeared that spelled eternal influence. Satan pointed at it and declared, "The world thought it was entertainment, but it was my gospel in disguise, and with it, I dragged millions along without them even realizing it." I fell to my knees crying out, "Lord, awaken your church. Open the eyes of the youth, break these chains of corrupt music." The Spirit answered me with a powerful voice, "Do not be silent. Speak what you see, because while many sleep, the enemy sings. But there is still time, there is still blood, there is still the cross. If they hear and repent, they will be free." Hell began to roar like an unleashed volcano. The burning plaza cracked open, and from them emerged giant hands made of lava that reached out to seize Shakira by her arms and legs. They lifted her into the air like a living trophy while hordes of demons cheered. I saw how each hand was formed from the faces of trapped souls, screaming in pain, yet forced to hold her. The rose in the midst of this scene and declared, "Just as millions lifted you up on earth, here you will be lifted up to eternal shame." At that moment, deformed trumpets made of burning bones began to sound. The sound was not music, it was a heart-rending wail that pierced to the bone. Each trumpet heralded a new torment. Suddenly, the flames parted like curtains, and a choir of demons appeared, dressed as priests. They wore black robes and held fiery banners bearing the titles of their songs. One by one, they began to chant them, transforming them into infernal litanies. Each title was like a decree that sealed her fate. Shakira tried to cover her ears, but the fiery chains that bound her coiled tighter each time she resisted. Her tears fell like drops of lava to the ground, and each one gave birth to fiery serpents that rose to bite her. She cried out, "Lord, have mercy." But Satan replied, "You sought your mercy too late. Now your voice is mine, and each tear your instrument." The Spirit spoke to me at that moment with a broken voice. "This is how the enemy pays those who exchange the cross for applause. Their tears become their own weapon of torment. Warn the world, for many are walking the same path without knowing it." I saw the demons bring an immense book, made of human skin and incandescent letters. It was the Book of Influences. There were the names of millions had been marked by her songs. Every time someone on earth repeated one of her lyrics, her name shone in that book. Satan held it up and said, "Each one of these belongs to me, and it all started with you." She cried out in despair, "No, don't drag them down because of me." But the lyrics kept appearing in the book like living fire, one after another, without stopping. Then the stage became a blazing dance floor. The demons pushed her to dance relentlessly, and every time her feet touched the ground, sparks of fire flew out and burned the damned souls around her. They screamed in pain, but they applauded like fans trapped in an eternal concert. It was the cruelest parody, a spectacle of suffering turned into a celebration for hell. The Spirit revealed to me, the enemy transforms worship into slavery, talent chains, fame into mockery. What earth celebrates for an instant, hell exacts for eternity. But tell them there is still hope. While there is life, there is a chance to repent. Speak without fear, for this testimony is a sword against lies. Suddenly, Satan raised a black chalice and held it close to Shakira. Inside there was no wine, but lava and blood mixed together. He forced her to drink, saying, "This is the pact you signed. You drank the glory." He forced her to drink, saying, "This is the pact you signed. You drank the glory of the world, now you will drink eternal torment." She resisted, but the demons held her. When she drank, her body convulsed with spasms, and from her mouth began to pour forth fiery musical notes that pierced her chest like arrows. Each sound was an amplified scream of pain. The crowds of the damned applauded, and he concluded with a deafening laugh. "So it will be with all who worship the stage more than the Creator. Their voices will be my eternal choir, and their songs my mockery forever." I fell face down on the ground, trembling as never before. The Spirit spoke to me once more. It warns the world, not all rhythm is innocent. Not all melody is light. Many are chains disguised as fun. But my blood still breaks, still liberates, still saves. It speaks because millions are one step away from repeating this fate. The abyss began to tremble as if all creation were groaning. The chains that bound Shakira multiplied into the thousands, enveloping her like a spider web of living fire. The demons dispersed to prepare what appeared to be a grand finale. From the depths, a roar rose, and from the darkest caverns emerged giant creatures with bodies of smoke and skull heads, each with an infernal drum hanging from its chest. They beat those drums with bones, and each beat resounded like thunder, shaking the trapped souls. I saw Satan rise from his burning throne and extend a black scepter with red jewels that shone like burning coals. He pointed at Shakira and said, "You will be my standard bearer to show that human fame doesn't save. You who moved multitudes, now stir up torment. You, who filled stadiums, now will fill caverns with lamentations." With a gesture, he ordered her to be lifted up as if she were the star of a concert. The demons obeyed, placing her on a stage made of metal spikes that dug into her feet. Suddenly, the air filled with a familiar melody. It was a Joseph but distorted, played with bone violins and flesh drums. The demons chanted each verse in strange languages, as if they were incantations. And the most chilling thing was that Shakira couldn't help but sing too, forced by the chains that squeezed her throat. Every word that came out of her mouth transformed into fire that burned her from the inside. She screamed, "No, I don't want to sing anymore." But the chains responded by tightening even more. The Spirit spoke to me in a firm voice. "This is the price of putting your gift at the service of the world. Talent was given for worship, but when it is misused, it becomes a condemnation." She cannot remain silent because she surrendered her voice as a contract. Thus, millions surrender their gifts to the enemy, believing there will be no consequences. I saw the stage split in two, revealing an abyss filled with flames. There fell multitudes of souls screaming the same choruses of her songs, trapped in an endless echo. It was as if every concert she ever gave on earth now had its replica in hell. But instead of lights and joy, there was fire and chains. Satan raised his voice. Every clap on earth was fuel for this fire. Every repeated chorus was a brick in these walls. And now all they built is my eternal temple. In that instant, Shakira was dragged toward a black crystal throne that rose in the center of the abyss. But that throne was not one of honor, it was one of torment. It was covered in burning thorns that they pierced her body when she sat down. The demons shouted, "Queen! Queen of Hell!" And he crowned her head with a fiery laurel, a symbol of inverted victory. She wept. "I don't want this throne." But Satan replied, "The world gave you thrones of gold. I give you what you truly deserve." The most heartbreaking thing was seeing how, from the ground up, at that very moment, thousands of people were listening to his songs at parties, weddings, and gyms. Each one of them, unknowingly, was spiritually connected to that infernal concert. The Spirit showed me invisible threads that came out of their mouths as they sang, and those threads fell directly into the abyss, feeding the flames. I understood that music doesn't just entertain, it binds, drags, and enslaves. I cried out in the midst of the vision, "Lord, what can we do against such a great deception?" And the Spirit answered me with a thunderclap that pierced all of hell. "Preach the truth. Declare that only my blood breaks chains. Expose the lie, even if the world hates you. Because music can bind, but my word sets free. Not everyone will listen, but those who do will be snatched from these flames." All of hell trembled at that word, and Satan screamed in fury, "Shut up! Do not reveal my secrets." But it was too late, for the vision was being engraved on my spirit to be told. The roar of the abyss reached its peak, the fiery stage, the black crystal throne, and the multitudes of demons seemed to vibrate as if all of hell were celebrating a single spectacle. Satan rose, spreading his dark wings over the multitude, and cried, "Thus ends all glory that is not to God. Thus die the idols that the earth erected." The caverns filled with demonic laughter, and the damned, compelled, applauded as if they were slaves in a macabre performance. I saw Shakira burning on her throne, the crown of fire piercing her head, and I understood that every drop of her torment was a warning to millions. Her voice, once celebrated in stadiums, was now an echo of endless wailing. Satan leaned toward her and whispered, "Your eternity is my favorite song. Here your hits don't disappear. They repeat forever like chains." She screamed, "No, I don't want to sing anymore." But the chorus of demons and damned souls kept repeating her distorted lyrics, drowning out every attempt at silence. Then the Spirit lifted me up in the midst of the vision and said to me, "Have you seen the fate of those who exchange the cross for fame, talent for vanity, music for idolatry? This testimony is not entertainment, it is a warning. Millions are walking toward the same stage because they don't understand that music opens doors. But there is still time. As long as they have life, they can choose, they can repent, they can break the chains." I saw a bright light descend for an instant in the midst of hell. It was small, like a lightning bolt piercing the darkness, but it was enough to make the demons take a few steps back. The Spirit told me, "That light is my gospel. Even if it is despised, even if it is ignored, it still has power. Because where my truth enters, they are broken. Tell them there is no song in the world that can save them, only my blood sets them free." He roared with fury upon hearing those words, and all of hell trembled like an earthquake. Satan shouted, "Silence him, don't let him speak." But I knew my mission was not to be silent. Still trembling, I replied, "I will speak even if the world hates me, even if they persecute me. I will speak because I have seen, and what I have seen is too real to remain silent." The vision began to fade, the fire, the screams, the macabre concert, everything dissolved like smoke, and suddenly I opened my eyes again in my room. I was on the floor, drenched in sweat, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would burst from my chest. I looked at the clock. It was 4:04 in the morning. Barely an hour had passed, but inside I felt like I had been there for centuries. I fell to my knees and began to pray. "Lord, protect your people. Awaken the young people, free families, break the chains that the enemy's music has forged." And the Spirit confirmed to me, "Your mission is to speak. Every word you share will be a seed. Some will mock, Others will doubt, but many will open their eyes. And if only one soul turns away from the fire, your testimony will have fulfilled its purpose. That's why I tell you today, brother, sister who listens to me, don't take lightly what you consume. Every song is an altar, every lyric is a door. Always ask yourself, does this melody draw me closer to God or further from Him? Does this voice inspire holiness in me or drag me into sin? Not everything that glitters comes from heaven. The enemy knows how to disguise chains with pleasant rhythms. I implore you, choose life, not death. Choose the cross, not the stage. Choose Christ, because only in Him is there freedom. Don't wait until it's too late. Today is the day to break the invisible chains that bind your heart. If you are reading this testimony, it is not coincidence. God is calling you. Answer before eternity catches you by surprise. Yeah,